Hello, hello. Gail here from Sober Bliss. Welcome to this week's podcast. I'm sitting here on a Tuesday morning and it's been quite a chatty day. I was on BBC Radio Leeds this morning, which is exciting, talking about how I quit social media, why I quit social media, and how my life has improved because of it. If you've been listening to the podcast for a while or you get my newsletter, then you'll know that I quit social media in February, and I probably will do an updated version of the podcast about that. But if you're interested, if you're curious, I'll put a link to the blog that I wrote about social media so you can go ahead and read that. Now, the reason I was on the radio this morning was because I was on the BBC News website yesterday, which is really, really exciting. And in the article that I was mentioned in, I say that the reality of leaving social media was far less scary than the thoughts I had about it. And it's absolutely exactly the same when it comes to quitting drinking, which is obviously what I want to talk to you about today. When will you quit drinking? When is the right time to quit drinking? And what is getting in the way of you doing it right now? Now we're beginning of November. Don't know how that's happened. It's crept up all of a sudden. But once Halloween's over, then we get into November. It becomes party season, Christmas, New Year. So you might be thinking, there's absolutely no way that I'm going to stop drinking right now. It's totally the wrong time for me. So I hope today's podcast is going to help you to see that actually there's never a right time in terms of dates. And when you decide to quit drinking and the energy that you put behind it, then that is the perfect time for you to quit drinking. Now, when it comes to making the decision, you're probably familiar with what I'm about to say. There's always things to do first before we can stop drinking. Except, of course, when we wake up with a hangover and then we say, that's it, I'm never drinking again. And then we give ourselves time to recover and the thoughts start to come through. And before we know it, it's 4:00 and we're in front of the fridge again. Because we've given ourselves time to talk ourselves out of the decision, I suppose. That's what I used to do often. And some of the things we might say to ourselves about the decision to quit drinking, things like, I'll stop drinking when I've got this awful week at work over with. I'll stop drinking when the kids go back to school or when the kids break up from school. I'll stop drinking when summer's over, when I've moved house, when I've got my new job, when Christmas is over. I'll stop drinking in January. I'll stop drinking after my birthday. All of these things we tell ourselves is a good time to stop drinking. Now, I do think it's important to have a plan in place, and if it helps you to have a date, then go ahead and do that date. There's nothing wrong with planning in advance and preparing yourself. There's a lovely lady who I've been talking to recently who did exactly that. She set a date and she stuck to it. And I think that's key. When we give ourselves vague kind of times in the future when we might get round to stop drinking, or when we base our decision or, tell ourselves we'll do it on abstract kind of concepts, then that's when we can just keep delaying and delaying and delaying the decision. And I know why we do that, because it's scary. I've heard things like, I'll stop drinking when I've got my life together. I'll stop drinking when I've figured out what I want to do. Or I'll stop drinking when I know who I am and where I want to go in life. I used to think that all the time. I remember I used to dream about all the things that I would do first. When everything was perfect, then I would stop drinking. I would decide that I would stop drinking when I had a brilliant yoga playlist, or I had the fridge stocked, or I had the money to travel or go on retreat, or a big pile of journals and new pens. I decided I would stop drinking when I'd found the perfect app, or my head was sorted out, or when I had a day off. But mainly, I thought that I could only stop drinking when everything was perfect, when everything was just right, and all my ducks were nicely lined up, ready to go. But the problem was, for me, and the problem is for you, if you keep delaying your decision to stop drinking because of the reasons that I've just talked about, waiting to stop drinking is like waiting to live. It is like putting your life on hold, because everything's never going to be perfect. Everything's never going to be just right. All the stars are not going to be completely perfectly aligned for you. There comes a point when you just have to take the step. And by taking this step, I don't mean you have to decide, okay, today's day one, off I go on my merry way, and then everything's fine and I never drink again. That's obviously not realistic, and that is not what I mean. When I say that you make the decision, you take the step to stop drinking, is when you really begin to commit to it and to try and to experiment and to explore and make this the focus of your life. And there are lots of different ways that you can do that. But I just want you to think about how waiting until you've got your life together, basically, is really just like putting your life on hold. And for me personally, when I stopped drinking, I didn't have any of the things that I wanted ready. There was even still beer in the fridge when I stopped drinking. I'd finished the 2 that I knew about, but there was still some hidden in the back of the fridge that I didn't know about. There were no lovely alcohol-free drinks. I didn't have fancy teas. I didn't have lovely journal and stationery. I just worked with what I had and then took it from there. And I think that's important to remember. You probably won't have it all figured out at first. And actually, in order to begin figuring things out, the stopping drinking has to come first. I remember talking to somebody in our membership a while ago, and she said that she'd been doing the inner work for years. And, you might relate. You might have a big pile of self-help books by the side of your bed. You might even be in therapy, doing all the things, but still feel that there's something missing. You're still waiting for the pieces to come together, for all the puzzle to fall into place. And like my lovely member said, she said, I've been doing all this work for years and years, but I'm just not getting anywhere. There's still something blocking me. And I'm not as creative as I want to be. I'm not as clear as I want to be. And I don't understand why I'm not getting to where I want to be. And then we figured out that obviously, to me anyway, the thing that was holding her back and filling her head up was the drinking. I mean, she was really lucky because she'd done all of that work first, or she was in the process of doing it. But often we have to stop drinking first, or at least start, and then we can put the other things in place. It's a many-layered process. I say it all the time. You can't just remove the alcohol and expect everything to be perfect and lovely, because it won't be. However, it's only by removing the alcohol that you can begin to work on all the other aspects of your life that you want to work on. Your dreams, your relationships, your job, your career, your creativity, your family, all of those things are much easier to deal with and to navigate if we're not battling with our drinking at the same time, because drinking just takes up so much space in our heads. It takes up so much energy. So it's no wonder that when we're drinking, there's little time to tackle the other things, the things that really matter. And so it is only by taking this step that you can begin to put your ducks in a row, if you like. I used to worry so much about what it would be like not drinking, how I would cope, what I would do, who I would be, what would I like, what would people think, how would I navigate Christmas, what about the summer, how will I have fun, how will I relax. All of those things used to plague me and just made the whole process before I quit drinking really difficult and challenging, and it actually dragged it out for far longer than was necessary, because all of the worrying and overthinking just made it impossible for me to actually have a go. And when I did have a go, when I did commit, then all of the things that I'd been worrying about were actually not as bad as I made them out to be. I'm not saying that everything was perfect and I immediately knew how to cope, how to relax, how to have a good time, because I didn't. But I was able to figure them out without turning to drinking, as a habit, as something that I'd always done. You might have heard me talk about my mantra that I had when I quit drinking. And it was this: I'm not drinking no matter what. And that really helped me, because no matter what I felt, what was going on, then I just wasn't going to drink. So that was that decision made. But I had to obviously then figure out what to do instead. But that was when I started making progress. I started learning about myself, and I started finding different ways to do all of the things to cope and to relax. And it did obviously over time get so much easier. I do truly believe that, thanks to my own experience, committing to changing your relationship with alcohol first is the real step to change, to progress, and to growth, I think it has to be that very first step, because you really can't explore the other things in your life. You know, if you're hungover, or if your head is filled with thoughts of drinking, or if you're a little bit tipsy. Now, I tried meditating for ages before I quit drinking, but I could never do it because I was too tired and hungover and groggy in the morning. If I'd been drinking early on and I thought, oh, let's meditate in the afternoon, I would always fall asleep. And same with evening times. You know, I would pass out in bed. So I never got round to learning how to meditate. Even though I thought, oh, if I can just learn how to meditate, then that's going to be the thing that will help me quit drinking. And it did, but I had to stop drinking first. And honestly, it is that freedom of mind, that clarity, that space that you give yourself that allows all of the other lovely things in. And it is only with the clarity and the freedom and the peace that you can begin to do the inner work, if you like, to dig a little bit deeper and to sort through what's really going on. Why have you really been drinking? And, you know, what needs to change and how you can begin to make those changes. And I do think it's important to try and remember that it is easier to deal with the uncomfortable things. It is easier to find out who you really are if you remove the alcohol first. And all of the whens that you might tell yourself. So when I feel settled at work, or when I feel happier, or when I've got my morning routine sorted, when I know what I'm going to do every afternoon. Those whens are really only possible because you stop drinking, not the other way round. So I'd really like you to think about the whens that you've been telling yourself you have to wait for. Now, are they really true? Do you really have to insert your own when here before you can stop drinking? Or will taking the step, making the commitment to quit drinking now, mean that you can get your when faster and easier and in a more lovely way? And it's really important to think about yourself when you ask these questions that I'm going to share with you. And base your decision on how things are for you right now, not how you will imagine they will be in the future. Because as we know, it's so easy to overthink and to get lost and go down a little rabbit hole and imagine the worst thing ever. And that's not going to help you quit drinking. So just imagine, for example, that right now you've got everything perfect, everything that you need, whatever that might be. How does that feel? And use that energy, use that emotion to take the step anyway. And forget about other people, obviously, just focus on yourself. And the questions that I'm going to ask you now might help you to come to a decision, to figure that out. So, thinking about now, right now, not some random, date in the future. Are you truly happy with your drinking as it is right now? And be honest here. Think about how you go to bed at night. Think about the thoughts that come at 3 a.m. in the morning. Think about how you wake up. Think about how your drinking makes you feel about yourself. I also want you to ask if you think, is alcohol genuinely serving you right now? Is it really, this amazing thing that the marketing people make it out to be? Is alcohol helping you to be the person who you want to be? Or is it getting in the way of that? So when you tell yourself things like, I'll stop drinking when I know who I am. I'll stop drinking when I've written my book, or whatever it might be. Are you not going to be able to figure that out quicker if you stop drinking now? And also, this is a really important question. How is your drinking making you feel, really, like deep down? How's it making you feel? Do you think you might be better off taking a break from alcohol? And are the reasons that you're keeping drinking, the reason that you tell yourself why you can't actually stop drinking now, are they actually good enough? And with every question you ask, every thought that pops up, I want you to ask again, are you sure? Is this really the truth? Is this 100% true about my current situation? I'm reading a really great book called The Way of Integrity by Martha Beck, and she gets us to ask those kind of questions. And they're so powerful. And in fact, it's something you can ask yourself as you reach for a drink, or as you find yourself standing in front of the fridge or at the bar as you're about to have a drink. Do I want this drink right now? Are you sure? Are you really 100% sure that right now I want this drink? Is it going to serve me? Is it helping me in any way? Is it really what I want? And if you say, yes, it is, I've had a bad day or whatever, ask yourself again, are you sure? Are you sure you might not feel better with a nice cup of tea or going for a walk? And sometimes just asking yourself these questions is enough to put a little bit of space between you and the action. And you might find that actually, no, I don't need the drink right now at all. I'd much prefer and have some cake or whatever it might be. Anyway, write the questions down. Keep them with you. You can journal on them. You can, go for a walk with them. Spend a bit of time thinking about them. And I'd love to know what kind of responses you come up with. How have these questions made you feel? And what kind of things are you asking yourself right now about your drinking? And is the reason that you're telling yourself you can't stop drinking right now, is that actually true? And don't forget, if you need any support with that, then you just have to send me an email. I'll leave the link in the show notes. Book a cuppa chat with me and let's talk it through. Again, I leave the link in the show notes. Or come and join us in our lovely Blissfully Sober membership space, where we are there to support each other as we work through these kind of questions and everything else to do with living an alcohol-free lifestyle. And if the questions, or the answers rather, to your questions have made you think deeper about whether or not you deserve to put this decision off, or if you deserve to start living the life that you want right now and you need support, then I'm here for that too, as you know. Don't wait until after Christmas, for example. Don't wait until the 1st of January Think of all of the time between now and then that you could be experiencing, full of joy and clarity and freedom. Think of all the memories that you will remember. Think of all the times that you will cherish when you're fully 100% present. Think of how amazing you'll feel on January the 1st, if you stop drinking now, when everyone around you is feeling like pants. So let me know, how do you feel about quitting drinking right now? And have you been putting off your decision until you feel like everything's perfect and just right and all the stars are aligned? And how does it feel to just throw all of that out the window and take a step into the unknown and explore and experiment and be curious and full of wonder about what lies on the other side of your drinking? Because there's so much joy, so much life on the other side of drinking. And I really don't want you to wait for that. So instead of saying, I'll stop drinking when, some random date in the future, I want you to start saying, I'll stop drinking now. Now I'm going to commit. Now I'm going to start. Now is the time for me to live my life. I'm not waiting any longer. And see how that feels. Thank you so much for listening today. I really hope that this podcast and the questions has given you something to think about, something to ponder, something to work towards. And don't forget, if you need help, you know where I am. I'm absolutely here to help you in whichever way that I can. And I just want to leave you with one thing, especially with Christmas coming up, because we might already be feeling a bit stressed, anxious, and overwhelmed. I just have to say that life is so much simpler without alcohol in it. It truly is. When you take away all of the thoughts about drinking, the worrying about drinking, the recovering from drinking, the actual drinking, then what you're left with is such beautiful space in your life, in your head and in your heart. And I know it's scary, especially with, the season that we are about to enter. But I just want you to think about how much peace and freedom you will enjoy without alcohol. Okay, I'm going to let you go now and take those questions and those thoughts for a walk. Let me know how you get on. And I leave all the links in the show notes for you to get in touch with me. And let's talk about how I can support you if that's what you want. Thank you for listening. Until next time. Bye for now.